Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
It was a warm summer afternoon in Summit County, Colorado, when the incident took place. The sun was shining brightly, and the air was filled with the laughter of children enjoying their summer break. Among them were a group of kids from the neighborhood who had set up a lemonade stand in their community, hoping to make a few extra dollars for their summer activities. The Wilderness Home Owners Association area was typically a quiet and peaceful place, where neighbors knew each other by name and kids played freely in the streets. However, on this particular day, a few members of the HOA were less than pleased with the children's entrepreneurial spirit. These members believed that the lemonade stand was causing a disturbance and blocking the road, so they decided to take matters into their own hands. Around noon, the Summit County Sheriff's Office received a call. The voice on the other end of the line was stern and insistent, complaining about children running an illegal lemonade stand and obstructing traffic. The deputies knew they had to respond, even though the complaint seemed a bit exaggerated. When the deputies arrived on the scene, they were greeted by the sight of a brightly decorated lemonade stand, complete with a colorful sign that read, "Fresh lemonade 50 cents." The kids, ranging from ages 7 to 12, were excitedly serving their customers, mostly neighbors who were more than happy to support their young entrepreneurs. The deputies assessed the situation and quickly realized that the lemonade stand was not blocking the roadway. It was set up a few feet from the curb, and there was plenty of room for cars to pass. However, for the safety of the children, the deputies asked them to move the stand back a few more feet from the road, which the kids promptly did without any fuss. Thinking the matter was resolved, the deputies began to leave. They were just getting back into their patrol cars when the original complainants, a few irate HOA members, emerged from their homes. They started yelling at the children, accusing them of being on private property and demanding that they shut down the lemonade stand immediately. The kids were visibly shaken, their smiles fading as the confrontation escalated. The deputies, hearing the commotion, returned to the scene. They listened patiently as the HOA members vented their frustrations, then turned to the kids and their parents to hear their side of the story. The parents explained that the lemonade stand was set up on a strip of land that was considered shared HOA property. Since they were paying members of the HOA, they believed they had every right to use that space. The deputies took a moment to review the HOA's property guidelines and confirmed that the land in question was indeed shared property. They explained to the HOA members that the children were not in violation of any rules and had the right to be there as much as anyone else. Despite the deputies' clear explanation, the disgruntled HOA members were not satisfied. They continued to argue, claiming that the lemonade stand was an eyesore and a nuisance. The deputies, however, stood their ground, ensuring the kids and their parents that they were doing nothing wrong and could continue their small business. As the situation calmed down, the deputies took a moment to commend the kids for their entrepreneurial spirit and encourage them to stay safe while having fun. They reminded everyone that the community should support and uplift each other, especially when it comes to encouraging children's initiatives. The kids, heartened by the deputies' support, resumed their lemonade sales with renewed enthusiasm. Word quickly spread through the neighborhood about the incident, and more neighbors came out to show their support. Some brought extra lemons and sugar to donate, while others simply stopped by to buy a cup of lemonade and chat with the young sellers. One of the kids, a 10-year-old named Emma, later recounted the experience to her friends at school. She described how scared she felt when the adults started yelling, but how relieved she was when the deputies stood up for them. "It was like something out of a movie," she said, "but it showed me that we have people who will stand up for what's right, even when things get tough." As the summer days went by, the lemonade stand became more than just a way for the kids to make money. It became a symbol of community resilience and the importance of standing up for what's right. The parents, proud of their children's determination, continued to support their efforts and used the incident as a teaching moment about fairness, community, and the importance of standing together. The lemonade stand story spread beyond their small community, making its way into local news and social media. People from neighboring areas came to visit, turning the small stand into a local attraction. The kids were thrilled with the attention and decided to use some of their earnings to give back to the community. They donated a portion of their profits to local charities, further cementing their place as young leaders in their neighborhood. Looking back on that summer, the parents and children of Wilderness HOA remembered it not just for the lemonade stand but for the lessons learned and the bonds strengthened. They realized that sometimes small disputes could bring out the best in people and that even the smallest voices could make a big impact. In the end, the lemonade stand will likely continue to operate every summer and become a beloved tradition in the Wilderness community. The kids grew up, but the stand will remain passed down to younger siblings and new neighborhood kids, always a reminder of that one summer when they stood their ground and brought their community closer together. The old folks in our HOA, I'm a board member, would probably report a lemonade stand too. There's a rule against running a business inside of the HOA, and for some of these people, the rules are sacrosanct and must be upheld by all stretches of the imagination. Because in their eyes, if we allow any discretion in rule enforcement, it'll lead to worse violations. Like first it's a lemonade stand, then they're playing soccer in front of your window and crapping in your bushes. Oh, absolutely. Your kids can play in HOA-approved ways, but only within the confines of your own fenced-in backyard, provided, of course, that the fence is tall enough to keep their joyful noise from disturbing the peace of the neighborhood. Heaven forbid anyone hears laughter or sees a child having fun. And let's not forget the ever-vigilant HOA patrol, ready to scale your fence with a ladder just to ensure that no unauthorized activities are taking place. I mean, who wouldn't want a surprise visit from the neighborhood watch to inspect your backyard for road games of tag? Maybe they'll even bring a checklist. Is the swing set painted the correct shade of beige? Are the kids wearing HOA-approved helmets while playing hopscotch? It's a wonder any child can survive the oppressive scrutiny of an HOA that treats childhood like a potential zoning violation. So, go ahead and let your kids enjoy their backyard prison. Just keep the fun to a minimum and make sure to submit a request for approval for any new games. After all, nothing screams family-friendly community like a strict no-fun policy. Unbelievable. These HOA busybodies need to get a life instead of harassing innocent kids trying to have some summer fun. What kind of miserable person calls the cops on children selling lemonade? This is a perfect example of HOAs gone mad with power. Let kids be kids and stop trying to micromanage every aspect of the neighborhood. I bet these are the same people who complain about kids these days not having any work ethic. Well, here are some entrepreneurial youngsters showing initiative, and the HOA wants to shut them down. Pathetic. Talk about a bunch of fun-sucking, lemonade-hating Karens. These HOA tyrants should be ashamed of themselves for trying to crush the spirits of children just trying to earn a few bucks. What's next? Banning hopscotch and jump rope as unauthorized sidewalk activities. This is exactly why people hate HOAs. Petty power trips and ridiculous overreach. Those poor kids were probably terrified seeing police show up. Kudos to the sheriff's deputies for having common sense and not caving to these miserable complainers. Maybe the HOA board should try some of that lemonade. They clearly need to sweeten up. When I moved into my condo back in 2020, I thought I was in for a nice, quiet life. Little did I know, the HOA here had a reputation that would soon become very clear. Every year around this time, our HOA sends out a letter asking if anyone wants to add their name to the ballot for the board election, which takes place around October or November. The sign-up for this year's election just arrived, and boy, does it have a funny twist. I should give you some background first. When I moved in, the board consisted of 3 people holding the essential positions: president, vice president, and treasurer. They weren't exactly known for their stellar performance. By summer 2021, the neighbors had had enough. 2 of them decided to run for seats on the board, and they won in the 2021 election. According to our CC&R, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the board has to have a president, VP, and treasurer, with other neighbors potentially serving as standard board members or chairing other committees. The 2 newly elected members won enough votes to become president and VP. When they offered the former president and VP the chance to stay on as standard members, those 2 immediately resigned around New Year's. They wanted out, and fast. So, as of 2022, our 2 new elects took over as president and VP, while the treasurer kept his seat. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Our neighborhood is about 35 years old, and there's a well-established culture of disdain for the HOA. People here demand a lot for the nearly $500 a month we pay in dues. There are over 200 units, and trust me, everyone has an opinion. Come summer 2022, the election sign-up went out. Not a single soul added their name. By the holidays, the ballot consisted of the president, VP, and treasurer. According to state law, a condo complex has to have an HOA, and according to our CC&R, anyone in the three essential positions can't resign unless there's a replacement. So, the election was pretty much a joke. The existing board had to stay in their roles, like it or not. Fast forward to summer 2023. The same scenario played out. The election sign-up went out, and again, nobody added their names. By the holidays, the ballot was a carbon copy of the previous year. The board members had no choice but to continue in their positions. And now, here we are in summer 2024. The election sign-up just arrived, but this time, there's something new. Along with the usual letter, there's a second one included. The language makes it clear that they're pleading for help, and it's obvious why. These people are exhausted. Instead of enjoying their homes, families, and retirement, they've been worked to the bone with no end in sight. According to the CC&R, their only way off the board is to lose an election, sell their home, have a severe medical hospitalization, or, quite morbidly, die. They need help or want new elects so they can do what the former board did in 2021. Resign and get some relief. But it's unlikely to happen. They're staring down a third year of being stuck in this thankless, exhausting job, surrounded by people who want nothing to do with the system but demand every single thing they're legally entitled to. Let me paint you a picture of what it's been like. Imagine dealing with constant complaints about everything from noisy neighbors to parking disputes to requests for repairs that never seem to end. One of my neighbors, let's call him John, has been particularly vocal. He once called an emergency meeting because the color of the new parking lines didn't match his car. I kid you not. Another neighbor, Susan, demanded a refund on her HOA dues because she felt the community pool wasn't warm enough in the winter. It's California. Susan, the board members have had to juggle these kinds of issues daily, all while trying to maintain some semblance of order. The president, let's call her Mary, has been especially dedicated. She's spent countless hours on the phone with contractors, organizing community events, and trying to mediate disputes. But even Mary has her limits. I remember running into her at the grocery store last winter. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I just want to enjoy my home, she told me, her eyes tired but resolute. The VP, a guy named Mike, isn't faring much better. He's retired and thought joining the board would be a good way to give back to the community. Instead, he's found himself fielding complaints at all hours of the day. I didn't sign up for this, he confided in me one afternoon. I thought it would be a couple of meetings a month, maybe organizing a barbecue or two. Not this never-ending barrage of issues. Then there's the treasurer, Bob. Bob has always been good with numbers, which is probably why he's managed to keep his sanity somewhat intact. But even he has had moments where he's questioned his life choices. Like the time he had to explain to an irate resident why the HOA couldn't just print more money to cover unexpected expenses. It's not a magic money tree, he muttered to me later, shaking his head. So, as you can see, being on the board is no picnic. It's a thankless job, filled with endless demands and very little appreciation. The current board members are at their wits' end. They're hoping, praying even, that someone, anyone, will step up and take over so they can finally get some rest. But here's the kicker. Despite all the grumbling and complaining, despite the endless demands and constant headaches, nobody wants to step up. Everyone wants the benefits, but nobody wants the responsibility. It's a classic case of, not in my backyard. I get it. I really do. The thought of dealing with all that stress and hassle is enough to make anyone think twice. But the reality is, if nobody steps up, we're all going to be in a worse position. The board can only do so much. They need help. And if we don't step up, we'll only have ourselves to blame when things start to fall apart. So, before you think about running for your HOA board, really think about it. Consider the time, the effort, the stress. Think about the thankless nature of the job and the endless demands. But also think about the potential to make a difference, to improve your community, and to ensure that things run smoothly for everyone. As for me, well, I'm still on the fence. I've seen what the current board has gone through, and I'm not sure I'm ready to dive into that kind of chaos. But I also know that if good people don't step up, nothing will ever change. It's a tough decision, and one I'll have to make soon. In the meantime, I'll keep watching from the sidelines, offering my support where I can, and hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone will find the courage to take the plunge. Because if there's one thing I've learned from this whole experience, it's that being on the HOA board is not for the faint of heart. It's a tough, thankless job, but someone has to do it. And who knows, maybe that someone will be me. So yeah, that's the story of our HOA drama. Not exactly edge-of-your-seat thriller material, but it's been eye-opening, that's for sure. If nothing else, it's taught me to appreciate the simple things in life, like not being on an HOA board. Who knows, maybe next year I'll write a follow-up. The continuing saga of the trapped HOA board members. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Until then, I'll be over here, enjoying my condo and thanking my lucky stars I'm not the one dealing with all this mess. And to our current board members, if you're reading this, hang in there. Maybe start playing the lottery. It might be your best shot at escape at this point. Just don't forget to pay your dues if you win. It's a good story, but I'm surprised to hear that your covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CCRs, require people to stay on the board. That sounds almost like indentured servitude, which is both impractical and likely unenforceable. In reality, board members should have the option to resign if they choose. If everyone were to resign simultaneously, you would be left without a functioning board, which could lead to a state of receivership. Receivership is a legal process where a court appoints a receiver to manage the affairs of the organization because it can no longer govern itself. This situation is far from ideal as it can be costly, time-consuming, and may result in decisions that are not in the best interest of the community. Therefore, it's crucial to have a sustainable plan for board succession and to encourage community involvement to avoid such dire outcomes. I looked this up. It's called the Davis-Sterling Act. This one law firm set up a website explicitly about the law. The part that sounds like a nightmare is here: director liability. In addition to owners being vulnerable to litigation, directors from the last board of record could be sued for breach of their fiduciary duties for resigning without appointing replacements. The question here would be if the appointee needs to consent to being on the board, or can the board just say, "You're on the board now. Peace." Because that would be hilarious. Find the loudest complainers and be all, "This mess is your problem now." Typical HOA BS. These power-hungry jerks signed up for this. Now they're whining about being worked like dogs. Cry me a river. Maybe if they weren't such control freaks, people would actually want to join. $500 a month for what? To have some retirees tell me what color I can paint my door. Give me a break. They're probably just upset they can't boss everyone around as much as they'd like. If it's so terrible, they should have thought about that before playing dictator. All HOAs are just scams to squeeze money out of hardworking homeowners. Let them suffer in the mess they created. I bet they're only begging for help because they realize they can't handle the job they so desperately wanted. Karma's ABCH, ain't it?
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.